Hello. Uh, I've tried making an intro a few times. It's quite difficult. I don't have Nandi's cute little chime, unfortunately. No, not throwing shade at Nandi. It works for him, and clearly I'm struggling to make an intro. Anyways, this is the second time I'm making this video because I did consult with some people from Bloody Rose. Just for transparency, I'm in the Bloody Rose Celestians. We're in the same cluster as Bloody Rose. We were top 8 a couple seasons ago. Now we're top 14. We kind of fell off. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I made a video about the Turbigon and the Wing type Tyrant. However, I just wanted to give a very fast, very quick guide as to what you can use against most of the bosses, or rather all of the bosses. I'm going to give a quick little guide for all of them as to what you should be using and what the best strats are. Uh, the Bloody Rose leadership did urge me to not share this information. However, I am all for the sharing of knowledge, and I hope you can benefit from me sharing this information. So some of it is super straightforward, some of it is less straightforward. It is what it is. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. So first things first. Essentially, there are 3 teams that you can be using against most bosses. And first team is Ragnar team, second team is a hybrid team, and third team is Nero team. So we're just gonna go over Ragnar team. So for the Ragnar team, the best comp is Eldarion, Ragnar, Athena, and Calgar. What this does is this absolutely overbuffs Ragnar into Kingdom Come, and he gets extra crit chance to proc his passive more because his passive does give him 3 extra hits, but it also gives him additional crit damage. So the more crit damage you have, the more crit chance you have, the more crit becomes more valuable. Because you do even more damage, it becomes even more valuable. On top of this, Ragnar does have the Beast Slayer trait, which gives him a 20% boost. And if you just add in more and more damage through Calgar's Imperium buff, which is 1300, Athena's 400 buff, and LD's 900 buff, he really reaches heights that should not be possible. But it is, luckily for us. So first boss is the Screamer Killer. Now, Screamer Killer, I put 2 characters under him because you can slot in either of these. Now, these really depend. If you have a high-level Bellator, it should be fine. But if you have a high-level Ulf, it's also good. So if the Screamer Killer itself, it's not too high level, so L Legendary 1, Legendary 2 maybe, you can bring Bellator, and as long as your Bellator summons are high enough leveled, which is 50, and they should be 50 because he's so good, you can summon at the end and you'll get a lot of procs. Now, if it is a higher level Screamer Killer, then you want to use Ulf. The reason is Screamer Killer uses an ability, then it attacks. And Ulf uses his passive, which is 5 hits, doing ungodly amounts of damage each time an active ability is used next to him. So each turn, Ulf gets 8 hits. Now, the passive hits, the 5 passive hits, they don't benefit from Athena or Calgar. However, LD passive does work, which is good. You can use either or, if it's L5 and you don't have a high enough Ulf, then you can still use Bellator. He still gets the 6 Imperium hits, 6 hits for Imperium Calgar, which is 100, 400 from Athena, and then 900 from Eldarion. I'm rounding up these numbers because I don't want to say, oh, it's actually 898 damage. 900 is much simpler to say. For Gaskell, what you want to do is you want to take LD, Ragnar, Athena, Calgar, and Bellator. The reason you want to take Bellator is because there is a strategy where you trap Gaskell Traka with Bellator summons after he deploys the orc boys, and that way he doesn't move and you get as much damage as possible. Personally, the highest I've gotten was 661,000 damage on the Legendary 5 Gaskell Traka. I've seen people in my guild do 700 plus. So this is a very good strat. I also did put Asmodai below him. Now, Asmodai hasn't released by the time of this video. Hopefully, I gotta give I see how long it takes me to publish this. Um, oops, sorry. Apologies about that. Um, Asmodai may replace Athena because his buff is something different. It is much more applicable to all the Beltor summons, but he is slower and not critting on Ragnar Howl turn is quite rough. So I put him here as a oh, you guys should keep your eyes open for this because it's quite important. Now, for the tank is pretty straightforward. You take the same four guys, LD, Ragnar, Calgar, Athena, and you take Anshi. Now, Anshi is pretty much utility. He has 5 hits, which is cool. And he doesn't have range attacks, so he does benefit from the Howl turn. But the reason you take Anshi is to refresh Ragnar's Howl. Now, Ragnar's Howl gives you 36% crit chance. The tank weak spot gives you 30% crit chance. And Athena gives you a 20% crit chance. And then you have the 40% crit chance base. So it creates a situation where you can crit. And you do want to crit as much as possible because Ragnar's base pierce ratio is non-existent. And you want to bypass the tank's, oh, you have to go through my armor 3 times passive by critting. So these are the characters you want to use for what's it called? Screamer Killer, Gaskell, and the tank. Now, you can use these characters into Skarzek, the Silent King. However, I wouldn't suggest that because if he comes down from his throne, you can easily do 550,000 damage with this comp. I've been doing that. However, if he decides to stay in his throne and you mess up, I have done as low as 150,000 damage. So it's quite finicky and it is completely RNG dependent. Personally, I will not like. I mean, okay, I am using this team against them because I don't have anything better because everything is D3 here for me. And but if I had the option, I will be using other things. People in my guild are using other things and they are doing more damage than I am doing. Now, I will cover what they are using later. So let's go down. This is the Mortarion team. Now, Mortarion team, oops, I don't want to just take this back. Mortarion team is pretty different. It still has LD because, LD is the single best character in the game for guild rates. It has Neurotrope. The main way you do damage is through Neurotrope and stacking his passive. You can see we have Abrax here. Abrax exists because he is the best Neuro stacker in the game. So what you do is after Nero applied the stack to the guy, the Mortarion, Abrax summons the pink horror. Pink horror attacks, that's one stack. Screamer attacks, that's another stack. A third screamer attacks, that's a second screamer attacks, that's a third stack. And then it spawns another screamer. Now, with these screamers, you can manipulate Morty's AoE attack, the miasma one. So it doesn't hit the Neurotrope. That way, Neurotrope doesn't do 50% reduced damage, which is, pretty devastating when Neurotrope is your main way of doing damage. Now, this is to say Abrax doesn't do any damage himself. The Screamers have 3 hits, and Abrax passive makes it so whenever Chaos allies that are adjacent to him, they do +1 psychic hit. And that means in the turn he uses his active, he's gonna score around 10 hits, which is pretty good. I would argue it's pretty good. Other than that, you have Yazgor. Now, Yazgor he isn't very like shiny in the sense that, oh, he's not this insane character. The sole reason you're bringing him is because his active ability makes it so he switches places with a certain character, and that certain character, when they attack, they do 1 extra hit. Now, Neurotrope passive is per hit, so Neuro getting 2 hits at 15 stacks is essentially doubling his damage there. Well, not exactly, but you're doing way more damage than you have in your right doing. Other than that, the fort, it can be any of these. It's pretty flexible. Oops. It's pretty flexible. Ros Vita does do a lot of damage to Mortarion because he's a demon and a psyker. And you can use the Ros Vita active ability, which increases damage taken by demon and immune enemies. So on the last turn where the Neurotrope and the Asgore hit, this will do a lot of damage. Sorry, someone was at the door. And Ahriman is good. You know, you just fire the guy and then every psychic thing does more damage, which is cool. You know, people do like Vitruvis. I don't like Vitruvis. Vitruvis is a poor man's Ahriman. I really think Vitruvis is a scam here. Um, I think Vitruvis is a scam everywhere, to be completely honest with you, aside from Guild Wars, which is okay. Thaddeus Noble, Tad has the single highest damage stat, range damage stat, if I recall correctly, at D2 5 stars, which is what I have him at. He gets 2700 damage. I think at D3 1 star, he'll get 3100, 3200 with 3 hits. I mean, that's pretty good. He also does stack the Nero passive. It's only 1 stack, but it is what it is. You know, he still does very respectable damage himself. You can use the same comp into Silent King Primes because realistically, the Silent King Primes are always on the worst possible maps, and there's just no way you can benefit from melee comps. Sometimes you can, but for example, at the time of this video, the Skarzak Prime maps are absolutely atrocious. And the Neurotrope does do a lot of damage. You can do 400 pretty easily, 400,000. I mean, I wouldn't be making a video on it if you do 400 damage. Speaking of the Silent King, you'll go down now. The Silent King, this is pretty interesting. So I'll just, I'll do this as well. This is a strat Bloody Rose has been using for a while. I'll just copy paste these guys. I was gonna share it, but sure, why not? I'll share it. So first things first, Skarzak, Eldarion, it is what it is. Next thing, actually, you know what? So let's get this guy too. Why not? I'm gonna, I've been giving you pretty solid, not solid, as in like very rigid builds for bosses. I want to give less rigid of a build for Silent King because Silent King isn't that hard, but he can be quite annoying. So first things first, you want to have Eldarion as always. I mean, it's the best character in the game. Any combination of these characters can work. However, what you can do is you can use Abrax and Bellator as your two summoners. You wait to summon until the turn where the Silent King summons, not the initial summon if you get unlucky with the RNG, but the normal summon. The reason you do this is because you summon enough screamers from Abrax to kill a lot of the chaff that's laying around, and then you have enough Bellator summons to do a lot of damage. The Abrax summons do move before Bellator summons, so the screamers are either going to kill everything or clog up the map enough that Bellator summons can't pass to the death marks, and they will just stick on the Silent King and do a lot of damage. Now, if you go that route, that's 3 characters. I would suggest you go, what's his name? Mogan Raw and Thaddeus Noble, because Mogan Raw doesn't like moving too much, and Thaddeus Noble and Mogan Raw, they just sit on a hill holding hands, just raining fire on the boss. It's pretty cool. If you don't have Mogan Raw, you can go Volk. Volk does have 6 hits, so he is a relative alternative to Mogan Raw. However, Volt does not have the heavy trait, so he's not going to benefit a lot from Thaddeus Noble. What you can do instead of Thaddeus Noble, if you're running Volk, is you can run a Dark Strider. Now, Dark Strider is a good buffer. It's just he's a little awkward to use because of his movement. but he also works. If you know you got unlucky, you don't have Mogunra, you don't have Volk, and you don't have Tad, what you can do is you can just run Revas as well as a Dark Strider, and that's also a very solid comp. You can run Revas and Shosil, though the summons they like to wander off, so you might not want to do that. You can also run Show plus uh, I'm blanking on the name. It's Nandi's favorite character. It's a Shadow Sun. Yes, that's the one. Uh, hello, Nandi. Um, Personally, if it were up to me, I would run LD, Abrax, Bellator, Morgan Raw, and Dark Strider. You can do some very funny business by running LD, Revas, Show, Dark Strider, and Shadow Sun. That's a fun comp. But realistically, what I said about double summoner and then a buffer and 2 damage dealers, I think that is the most straightforward, it's easy to play build you can play. A lot of things work on him. You can, as I said, you can play the Calgar team or Ragnar team, sorry. However, it's very RNG dependent. If he comes down, you'll do a lot of damage. If he doesn't come down, you'll do no damage. And personally, I would prefer the consistency over the uncertainty of will he come down the steps, will he not come down the steps. Anyways, that's the just go over everything again. Yeah, these are the characters you use. This is the core you build. These characters are for each boss. And then you go down here, this team. Now you can use any of these 3 against Mortarion. You should be fine. Against the Skarzik Primes, I will suggest using Ahriman because Roswitha doesn't do anything. You can sometimes use Thaddeus Noble if there's a Scarab Swarm on the map, so it doesn't go around duplicating and everything just starts sucking. And for Silent King, you do Abrax, Bellator double summons, LD buff, Thaddeus buff, and then Mogunra as the main damage dealer. You can opt any of these things out, but as long as you have the LD, Bellators, and Abrax, that's the good enough core that you can fill up anything else as you want. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, and have a good day and stay safe.